Sup Shredders, my name is Logan, aka Spiderhands, and welcome to an SP Reacts, where today we've got ourselves a track from an act named Zach Kyle titled Hall's Relief. And if we switch over to here, we've got ourselves a track on the screen here on YouTube. It is a music video for it. I should note that apparently the Hall's Relief is a reference to the American cough drop company. It's named after that. And it's off of Zach's latest record titled Zach Kyle's Day Off, which apparently is inspired by the Ferris Bueller movie in the 1980s. So it'll be good to check it out. We're going to listen through this track from start till finish, and we're going to hear what we think. Let's do it, let's go. What do we got?
Like, I was looking at the boathouse one summer and I saw soundcloud.com/immortalzach. Gave that shit a listen when I got home. Shit was so fucking ass.
Hey, I keep it cool like Hall's Relief, legendary like Nike Elite. I never played sports, but I used to write raps in the back of the classroom, falling asleep. Used to ask to hit the bathroom and order Supreme. Simple shit I did back when I was 14. 6 years later, a little more clean. I don't really wanna play cause I never had a team. Still had friends though, we were going through fuck shit. Biking through the street, killing time before the function. And when we at the function, we the reason it could function. And I remember looking at the kids that I knew that were about to go to Ivy League schools. Used to be upset cause I wanna go too, but I had to stay true. Nothing in the world I would rather go and do than the shows that I rock in the 7-hour shoes. If I was in your shoes, it'd be cool for a week, but I really got a dream that I'm trying to make true. I gotta stay cool, so I'm chilling like a villain, playing Bob Dylan, and I never really listen. Feel like Jimi Hendrix, I'm about to be a star. Used to play piano, but I'm better at guitar. I like fancy clothes, and I don't got a car, so I spend the gas money on Supreme and the bar. Hooping all summer, getting better every millisecond. I never really cared for your ill intention. Mom's strict cause she used to be military, so nothing that you saying to me really scary. I guess I'm just a regular kid, living out a life I thought I never could have lived. Getting into places that I never should have been, and I did a few things that you never could have did.
Sick. I mean, it's a great use of 1 minute 40. For sure. I noticed that a lot of tracks I'm being sent now are getting shorter and shorter, and I feel like they're just making good use of that form factor. We're going to talk about this track more in the conclusion. Because welcome to the conclusion of my review of this track from an act named Zach Kyle titled Hall's Relief off of the Zach Kyle's Day Off album. In this section, we're going to provide an overall song analysis of everything from lyrics and vocals all the way through to studio production, as well as any applicable constructive critique, and finally my general thoughts. From a listener's perspective, first of all, what do we think this track is about? I think Hall's Relief, keeping things cool, you know, like, it's just one of the sort of many examples of wordplay in this lyrically. I feel like things are sort of like, he talks about, you know, military, his mom was in the military, and so nothing you say can scare me, etc. Like, it's good sort of like use of rhythmic and rhyming cadences. And there's this like very sort of like casual flow to a lot of it there, where it kind of reminds you a lot of like kind of 90s and 2000s hip hop that I listened to. There's got this sort of like vintage nostalgia to it, but at the same time, like, it's almost sort of like timeless because of the fact that it still sounds current, I suppose. It's kind of like history looping itself in terms of the styles and stuff like that that are more sort of popular nowadays. I think there were some interesting lines as well about how like he doesn't sort of like have a car or something along those lines, so he spends his money on Nike and stuff like that. And so you kind of get more of a feel about who Zach Kyle is. It's them sort of introducing themselves to us as a listener, and I get a good sort of impression of them. I feel like they kind of know what they're doing, they know what they're about. They're making sort of like waves with their music, and you know, they've been doing it for a while now, like 6 years, and you know, and that you know, you get to know them quite well. So ultimately, I feel like it's a nice sort of chill first impression with their work, and it helps that they are quite sort of like effective on the microphone. They're capable of sort of spitting bars that you can sort of like perceive, you know, clearly. There's no issues with sort of stumbling over words. You know, we adjust the rhythmic parts of the line. We adjust the cadences of sort of like our lines and bars and stuff like that to go through this piece, and within a shorter form factor we make good use of it. There's no filler, and that kind of like little sort of spoken introductory part there before we go into the main section, which is nice. This was kind of cool to have like a little bit of an aside as an introduction to the main piece there that was, you know, relatively through composed. We've got a kind of confidence that is sort of exuded I've got a confidence that exudes through the microphone, and just as we move through the piece, we ultimately feel like they're in control of the situation, know what they're doing, and you also get an impression that because of the way that they effectively communicate, that if you listen to more music from them, they're going to have a good time with it. I think also having like less sort of like melody or coloration to the vocal side of things, it allows the other instrumental elements within the track to flourish, because this is a track where even at 1:40 there's a lot of stuff to appreciate in there instrumentally in terms of the layering, the panning of things, the positioning, the percussion, rhythm, melodies, and harmonies. You've got this kind of lo-fi aesthetic to some of the filtering there, and this kind of feel to it that's kind of smoky sounding, I suppose, there. It's kind of very sort of like warm sounding, with like the mid-range resonance there, as well as some of the reverb tails. The organ helps as well, just as a mid-range texture, kind of dancing between some extended chords there, offers a little bit of sort of emotional sophistication to it, a bit of jazziness, a bit of soul. I like the fact that, you know, like once you've got those filtered vocals in that early part there, the spoken part before they go into the main sort of part there, you've got the vocals filtered to allow room to be able to further appreciate the bass and sort of drum parts underneath it, the use of the cymbals, kicks, and snares. And like the use of interesting ambient syncopated drum parts with the cymbals, some of the open hi-hats we have as well, there illustrates that we're comfortable using different sort of like drum patterns. And that's important in a piece even this short, because if you just use the same sort of eighth note groove over and over again, even if there are occasional fills, it's just, there's more you can do with it, right? There's like an underlying 16th note groove to the hi-hats as well, which allows it to sort of like move forward at a steady kind of chill pace. And there's like a shimmer to the tone of it as well, which sounds like an acoustic hi-hat, so it adds more of a sort of an organic analog tone to it. There's also this kind of relatively subtle kind of note there in the upper register that adds a kind of a glow to the piece there, but it's very subtle as a sub-layer to also add a sense of dimensionality to it. And as you kind of move forward in speed, such as around the 45-second mark here, these kind of like things that kind of flutter on the sides as an occasional sort of like call and response or transitional device there. And the reason that's kind of intriguing is that that's just something you don't have prior to it. So we're further developing the instrumental side of things to add more sort of excitement or something else to kind of hold on to. But around that point, that halfway point mark where we add those flutters and stuff like that, the track kind of reaches a point where it's very sort of like comfortable with itself. It doesn't need to add much more. There might be occasional stops or like adjustments rhythmically on the drums, and the bass line underneath might continue to sort of like do occasional sort of like adjustments. But ultimately, when you've got the organs, the bass, the little kind of synth or key flourishes there, the drums, etc., as well as the vocals on top with a mixture of like single take and sort of like double take patterns there, you effectively have this really satisfying loop that's established at that midpoint that carries you out for the rest of the song, primarily because at that point you're already used to it, you're just kind of vibing along to it. If you've gotten to put that point in the first place, why would you not listen to the rest? And I just like that this track kind of just allows it to sort of fade out for a few seconds before it closes. I also just want to say that I did like the video editing as well. I thought it was sort of professional. It was interesting to have a square to the video, music video, for it to be like kind of 4:4, if that makes sense. You don't really see it that often. It kind of reminds me of the old sort of VCR TVs you used to have in the 90s. I think that's also part of why maybe it's a more sort of like vintage feel to the overall sort of audiovisual aesthetic. But ultimately, I think thematically, you know, outside of a competent, interesting sort of composition, you have a chord progression that has extensions and is like a major seventh, but very so subtly. The low mid resonance there doesn't make it sound too bright. I think it's in part to help sort of contrast the brighter leaning of the vocals there with the way they're being processed to the keys and stuff like that. But again, you have the chirrupy kind of key flourishes and stuff to kind of accent those and sort of add variety there. So ultimately, it's very sort of like low key and sort of self-confident, and it indicates kind of that we feel good about ourselves and our life at this point in time, that we aren't, but we aren't too overzealous about it. It's something you can vibe along to, us appreciating the sort of steps they've made. Studio recording, mixing and mastering, the vocal production, as well as the keys, bass, drums, synth flourishes, etc., or key flourishes, etc., are tight there. I think there's nice sort of reverb tails and use of sort of filtering to adjust like the vocals, for example, at the start there, to kind of make them a bit more sort of distinct in the remainder of the vocals throughout the rest of the track. The drums have a nice sort of punch without being too intense. There's nice sort of like ghost noting of those 16th hi-hats that are not made too sort of like present. And there's a sense of dimensionality, especially when I mentioned that upper resonance there, that kind of layer that does a unison note and like the mid to end of the piece. Ultimately, you've got like width to it, and there's no resonant frequencies in the frequency spectrum, which is good. Music surrounds you in the headphones there. I like how it's sort of presented there. Nice and loud, a bit of pumping bass compression, limiting is handled, ultimately quite well produced. No applicable constructive critique for me. I think this is a really promising, start to or first impression to their album. And from a final general listener's perspective, I just feel like they've got a good thing here and they should continue to stick at it. No complaints whatsoever from me. Ultimately, if they keep producing music like this and continue to maybe expand around, different topics that are important to them, I feel like it'll be quite well fleshed out as a longer play. But I wish everyone involved the best of luck in future with their music, and thank you very much for watching my review of this track from Zach Kyle, titled Hall's Relief, off of the Zach Kyle's Day Off album. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, please go show him some love via the various social medias and their YouTube page, and stay cool and stay safe, and please remember to support your local musicians and artists at this point in time, as they need the help more than ever with the crazy stuff going on in the world, and I'll catch you in the next SP Reacts. Spiderhands out.